We start this afternoon with breaking news in the shutdown fight after two major legal decisions. The White House saying it will be providing some food stamp benefits this month, only half, though, of what SNAP recipients usually see.
Those benefits are, of course, usually deposited into accounts on the first of the month and were skipped because of the shutdown. Two judges last Friday ruling that the White House must provide these benefits with money from a contingency fund. Let's go to CNN's Elena Treen, who is live at the White House. Elena, what are we learning here?
Yeah, well, what we're seeing now from these court rulings today is that the Trump administration will provide partial funding to continue one of the nation's largest, or I should say the largest, food stamp programs in the country. Now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which oversees the SNAP program, had initially said that they were going to be freezing the money that goes to SNAP, essentially, on November 1st. Of course, this comes during the government shutdown. They said they were running out of money, but because these two judges had ruled that the Trump administration had to keep this program going, now we're learning that they are going to, they said in a sworn statement, the agency is going to use roughly $4.6 billion from a contingency fund to help keep this up and running. Now, $4.6 billion is only about half of the money that is needed to keep this operating full time. So we're still looking at what this could mean once we hit that point. And to be clear, again, this is the nation's largest food program. It serves about 1 in 8 Americans, and of course is a major part of America's social safety net. And so this has been one of the key issues and concerns, really, as this government shutdown has continued. But now we're seeing they're going to pull on this contingency fund to at least pay for half of the money that they would normally during this time.
To think that 1 in 8 Americans are dependent on the government to feed them is insane. And I almost believe that this is something that we otherwise would have never addressed. It would have never been something that came up and we would dealt with as a social issue. And the fact that there are so many Americans, and half of which, if I'm not mistaken, more than half of which are going to migrants, is insane to me. And so we are under no obligation. I know that there's a ton of people that's sitting out here saying, oh, food security is a right. Where? If you go outside of the United States of America, for the most part, if you don't work, you don't eat. If you don't work, you don't eat. And so I think that we have a bigger problem here outside of the fact that the Trump administration is now providing at least half of these payments, and we don't even know what's going to happen in December. Right. So, if this is not the biggest warning to people to never, ever depend on the government, and we should not have a society where the government is spending this much of our tax dollars and our resources to make sure that other people, and, the people that pay into it the most, because they always saying tax the rich, tax the rich, the people that have the most resources, that provide the most jobs, they are the ones that pay the most in taxes. And so because we have this system, that is why we are taxed out of our minds. We spend so much money in taxes, so much money supporting people who feel entitled to it. There are welfare queens that have been on the system for so long that they can't even imagine themselves without it. There has been generations upon generations upon generations of people that have passed this down into their family. And the expectation from the next person that's coming up is that they will also be on government assistance and be on food stamps. And that is crazy to me that we are okay with this. We should never be okay with this as a society, as a culture, as a people. And the fact that we continue to let this happen and let it proliferate and not do anything about it. And the only thing that we have to say is, what we should do, to be honest with you, I'd rather the money go to the people that's actually having to work, the furloughed employees, as we barrel down a government shutdown. Honestly, it's just kind of scary to me. It's scary to me to think that the United States of America's food program is the thing that then is necessary for people to eat. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like, what would happen if we were in hunter-gatherer? Most of these people would cease to exist. You know what I'm saying? Because they can't even provide for themselves. So now we become a welfare country, not even a welfare state, a welfare country. And if you don't give these people, which we are the biggest broke people I've ever seen in my entire life, if we don't give people their government benefits, then somehow, some way that becomes an issue, aside from the fact that the Democrats continue to keep the government shut down. In my opinion, this is crazy.
And Elena, during tomorrow's off-year elections, several key races could give us sort of a glimpse of how people feel about the economy and of course, the administration. New polling, though, shows that voters may not be impressed with President Trump. The data finds he's hitting his lowest approval rating this term, just 37%, his highest disapproval, matching January 2021. Democrats also showing a very early advantage when it comes to potentially flipping Congress in next year's midterms. What is behind these numbers?
Yeah, well, one of the really interesting things about all of this, Boris and Brianna, is that, White Houses normally shrug off these type of disapproval ratings, these poll numbers. But what we've seen the president do is actually entrench himself even deeper in some of the issues that this polling shows from CNN that Americans disagree with him on. For example, I would take immigration enforcement across the country. A majority of Americans, 57% in the CNN survey, said that they believe the Trump administration is going too far with its immigration enforcement. And the president was actually talking about this last night when he appeared on 60 Minutes for an interview with Norah O'Donnell. And he said actually that he believes his administration is not going far enough. Of course, this comes, as we know, there's been a lot of uptick and criticism over the way that ICE has been handling some of these procedures, including, breaking glass as they try to get into cars, their use of tear gas, the list goes on. So that's one area where we saw the president really dig in. Another is the government shutdown. We're seeing in these polls that Republicans and the president are taking a lot of the blame, facing a lot of the political heat on this. But the president is still digging himself in deeper, saying it's up to the Democrats to open this. And he even brought up the idea of getting rid of the filibuster, essentially eradicating this precedent and trying to end the shutdown without any Democratic support. And so as we look at these numbers, 63% disapproval, you mentioned it, but that is a higher disapproval rating than he did have actually when he left office during his first term.
I don't care about
Elena Trina, live force at the White House. Thank you.
I'm more concerned with the people that are actually doing jobs getting paid. And I wouldn't even be against this whole filibuster that would allow for the government to get back open and for it to be fully funded. I think that we see a lot of rambling from the Democrats. And then more importantly, if you really pay attention to what their rhetoric is, the reason why they are able to do this is because they still getting their paychecks at the end of the month. And so if you started to cut their paychecks, if you started to cut Congress's paychecks when the government shuts down, I would venture to believe that they would start to do their job and you would actually see them to show up because they have no vested interest. They have no skin in the game. They guaranteed to continue to keep their seat. They're going to continue to get paid. They don't have any term limits. Congress doesn't have any term limits. They are moving further into this whole socialist state and this socialist situation. And I just don't agree with it. I think that it's disrespectful. I think that it's stupid. And we are in shambles as a nation because we've for so long kicked the can down the road. And now we allowing for them to basically take people hostage and use them as leverage to try to get their way when it comes to what they want to pass and Obamacare to continue to fund illegal migrants and subsidize different states like California so that they don't go broke, and enforces them to actually balance the budget without government assistance, without federal help, and they can go back to pre-COVID spending. I just don't agree with none of this that's happening. But listen, y'all, let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.